So this is the Crestline RS 7550 EB. Been riding this for quite some time now. I'm going to give you a look around the bike and just give you some first thoughts because there's a lot of interest about this bike. But I've got to say there's three distinct bikes that really do stand out to me this year. First one is the Pole Voima, second is the Canyon Strive On, and third is the Crestline. And they're all long travel electric enduro bikes, but they all have different levels of travel and they feel slightly different to ride. The Canyon Strive On is a 160, 170. The Pole Voima is a 190, 190. And this sits kind of in between on the travel. It's still long travel. It's 180 and 175. So headline stats, 2929, long travel. 180 fork with a Fox 38, just the regular tune. I'm not running the E-tuned on here. And 175 of rear wheel travel. And I know you'll probably point out that it looks very much like a Santa Cruz. Well, the VPP suspension system that Santa Cruz are renowned for, the patent on that expired some time ago and anyone's free to use that. So Crestline have picked this. And they've worked with Cascade Components to provide the linkage and the kind of progression and the leverage ratio for the rear is pretty nice. It's really tightly packaged in there, but it's a pretty cool looking suspension design, and anyone's free to use this VPP now, just like anyone's free to use like a 4-bar horse link suspension package that you see on things like Specialized Levos and loads of different bikes now. Gotta say, looks wise, I love the look of this with the black stealth frame and the Larry orange Fox 38 fork. And then when you start getting close and you see how cool all the linkage and stuff looks, I think it looks really smart. The Cascade Components linkage, this part here, and then there's an actual link just in here. There's a link kind of driving the shock just in here. Now, one of the cool things about the bike is you can run it in a few different configurations. I've got it in the longest travel, so 180, 175. But you can actually flip the chip and put it in a short travel and it'll be running 160 at the rear. It doesn't change your geometry, it just changes the amount of rear wheel travel. But you can also play around with different shock strokes, and there's loads of different configurations that you can run it in that they show on their website. I'm just running it in the stock 180, 175. I like the long travel. I kind of think on an e-bike, if you've got it, why not? I don't really see too many downsides to it. Now, I did try a coil in the rear. When I first got it and first built it, if you watched the build video, I put a coil in the rear. I then thought, I'll give the air shock a go. And honestly, these X2 air shocks, they're so good now. You just get a little bit more pop. Not quite as plush, but I do find that air shocks, they give a little bit more pop and they do feel a bit more active, especially on a long travel bike. Don't like it to feel wallowy. Not that it did really with a coil, but I just preferred this when I kind of back-to-back tested. So yeah, X2, I love the X2 shock. It works brilliantly. The stock builds that you get now, they're kind of RockShox builds. But I believe you can get frame only if you wanted to build them up. And I'll pop the contact details down below and speak to Troyden because he's able to do some pretty interesting things if you're trying to get bikes at the moment. And it's definitely worth giving him a shout. But Fox X2 is a 230 by 65 and it works really well in this bike. Man, I love these long travel e-bikes. I just find that hardly any downsides to long travel. If you've got a motor, who cares about pedaling efficiency really? Because as long as you can clear and it's not bobbing down so much and you're not getting crazy pedal strikes when you're climbing up technical sections, which I don't find a problem on long travel e-bikes because the BBs tend to be a little bit higher anyway, the more the merrier. Like honestly, long travel, get up to 160, 170, 180, and even the Pole Voimas on 190 rear, like bring it on. I love the long travel e-bikes. Now, this is 175 at the rear and you can just ride anything. I'm on a beach right now. I would ride a cross-country ride. I would do a 30-miler cross-country on this bike, which you wouldn't have said about a 170, 180 travel pedal bike. Like, you'd be nuts to ride a cross-country course on that. But you got a motor and a big battery, so you can ride pretty much anything from cross-country to rides around the park to World Cup, enduro courses, and probably more. Bike park. You could ride a lot of a downhill track on this. It's really, really good to have that suspension on tap, and I think every single bike I buy really will be a long travel electric mountain bike. I just find them really, really versatile. Now they can be a little bit more lethargic in the tight and twisty stuff compared to like a trail bike with 150 travel, but I'll take the downsides because when it starts to get rough, these really just munch up the terrain. I think first thing, it's got the Bosch motor. So let's talk about that. I'll talk about the Bosch system because it's a pretty interesting way that they've got all this integrated. So little secret, when they were designing this bike, they were going to use the Starship Enterprise massive Bosch control on there, but midway through the design, Bosch released the system controller and they kind of thought, oh no, where are we going to put that? Because there's no space for it, because they've actually put the screen on here. But what they've done is they've put it underneath the top tube, just here. So you turn it on, it's easy to feel where the button is because it's really tactile, and the screen is just up here. And the remote just over here. So what you get is you get the cleanliness of the Bosch system controller tucked away under the top tube, and you get the neat Bluetooth wireless controller, speed controller, and you get your display on the top tube so you can cycle through and change your modes. And I just think it's a really nice way of integrating all that tech. Now, many other companies might not have been able to adapt so quickly and change and integrate the system controller under here like Crestline have done so quickly. And because they're a little company, they can make those changes really fast. They're kind of agile and like a nippy speedboat. They can just change directions really quickly rather than a big company that might not have been able to do that. So yeah, I think that's really, really cool. So just in here, I've got the Bosch Race motor, 85 newton meters of torque, but the Bosch Race motor gives you basically an extra piece of software which allows the motor to have like 2 meters of overrun and a super quick, like getting up to 100% of the power like immediately. It's so quick how this gets up to power. You just give it one stab of power and it's just off. It just is so quick and so responsive, and you can see why Bosch are mopping up at the races, because the race mode is super quick to adjust, super quick to lay down the power, and the overrun is a great feature. Now, there's a couple of things that I wish Bosch would solve. Firstly is this. Don't like that ratchet noise, and I don't like this float that you get, because if you're used to something that gives you instant engagement, that float is a little bit annoying. But I've got to say that Bosch's power delivery, I think, is the best. I love how quick it is. I love how powerful and responsive it is, and the fine level of torque control you get from the Bosch motor is excellent. There's a few things like this I'd like them to solve. It rattles on descents. You can hear it knocking. It's just frustrating when you're used to a quiet bike, and I've been riding these SRAM powertrain bikes a little bit, and that is so quiet, but I still prefer the overall performance of this Bosch motor. They've just absolutely nailed it. It's really decent. It's not perfect, and I hope to see a new generation solve some of those issues, and especially with the noise. On the other side, it shows the Bosch kind of race logo on there. I've got to say, I do find the finish a little bit cheap. It's almost like a matte primer, and it should have a coat on the top of it. I can see what they've been trying to do with it, but does look a little bit unfinished. It looks like a car that's not had the kind of paint, the final paint layer applied to it. From the bars, we've got DMR def grips. I'm running a 40mm rise RENTHAL FATBAR. The little SRAM pod controller, which I actually really like, and I weirdly run it really close to the grips, probably too close for a lot of people. I just find that I almost like lock my thumb onto the bottom of the grip and press it. Weird, that just kind of works for me, but a lot of people I've seen run way further away from me. But yeah, SRAM pod controller, it's pretty decent, unlike the new SRAM T-type transmission. It just works brilliantly, I think. 40mm RENTHAL. Haven't used RENTHAL for a while, but I had these in my drawer, so I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. Bergtech 50mm stem. And you can see I hardly cut the forks down because I like to have a little bit of stack left just in case. I tend to start off high and then bring the bar down to find my balance and weighting on the bike between the front and the rear wheel. And I've given myself, I don't know, 30 mil up there, just in case I want to go somewhere that's a bit steeper and I might want to run the bars a little bit higher. Doesn't look great, I know, but I'd rather have a little bit too much than a little bit too little. All right, let's check out these brakes, because these are absolutely amazing brakes. Hope Tech 4 V4. Every time I get on a bike that doesn't have these, it just reminds me how powerful these brakes are. Loads of modulation. You can get so much controlled feeling going down the steep stuff, and the power is just incredible. I love the design, I love the machining. They're easy to work on, easy to bleed. You can get spare parts from Hope. They're fantastic brakes. They're not cheap, but they're not like crazy pricing like some of the super high-end brands are that are out there. These are 220, and you can see they're vented. They're probably overkill for what I actually use them for, but I wanted to give them a go because I needed to get some new discs. So these are Hope 220mm vented rotors, and the idea is they let some air in between to help with the cooling, and on super long extended runs, yeah, these get so hot, like red hot. Okay, another thing to mention is this here. This is a Works Components reach adjust. So I'm running a +5mm reach adjust headset. So the stock is 500, I'm running 505 just to try it out. But also it slackens the bike by about 0.5 degree. So this bike in this configuration, on my measurer, my angle measurer, is 63.5 degrees, slightly under 63.3, I would say. So 63.3-ish with that. Does raise the stack a little bit, raises the front end, but it's actually how Troyden runs his bike, and he's the same height as me, roughly, give or take a few millimeters. And he said, give it a go, and that's how I built it. And I thought I might remove it and just try it stock, but really like the way the bike handles with that. I'm 191 centimeters and 6'3", so that works very well for me. And yeah, I won't be taking that out because just have that little bit of extra reach and slightly slacker is good. I can actually ride bikes from about 480 right up to 520. That's my kind of span, I would say, on bikes, and I can adjust the bar height and the stem length and all that to try and compensate. So I'm running these rims by OQUO, OQUO. They are front and rear specific. These are aluminium, the MC32 team they're called, and they've got some pretty cool tech in them. They've got some nice pinch protection. They've got fairly decent bead size rims on the rim profile. It's got fairly kind of thick profile, and they're front and rear specific, and they're pretty decent. I've also got a carbon set to test, but I just put the aluminiums on these. And I'm running the Spec Cannibals in grid gravity. These are one of my favourite, if not the best bang for buck tyre. They're downhill casing, they're 1.36 kilos. They've got a nice tread pattern, they're beefy. You can run them at decent pressures. And they are probably on balance one of the best, or if not the best overall, in my experience, burly enduro tyre out there in a downhill casing. They're soft, super soft. They do not last a long time. That's one of the downsides, but it's basically like a super soft racing tyre, and decent puncture protection, really grippy, nice block pattern on there, and really recommended. And the biggest thing I think is they are at an amazing price. You can get them for about £45 in the UK, brand new from Specialized, which is half the price of Maxxis. So massive fans of these Cannibals. Give them a go. Or the Hillbilly version would be good for the winter. Same casing, pretty much, just a bigger block pattern for mud. A couple of ONEUP bits. Now the steerer tube houses this little multi-tool. In there I've got like a little tyre plugger, multi-tool, tyre lever, spare chain links. It's so good having this on the bike. I used to be that guy that always borrowed other people's tools, but now I'm the one with all the tools. There's even a chain breaker in there. You just take the tool out, split it apart, and everything pops out, and it just clips in there nicely. And then just on the underside here, I've got the ONEUP pump, which I've used on a few occasions, got a few punches, CO2 stashed in that bit there. So a CO2 will fit in there. And then you've got basically like a high PSI pump. It's just neatly tucked under there with one of these things that I found online from a small UK company. It just goes on the little bottle mounts just under there, and it just looks kind of neat. It all works. So basically, you can go out with this bike and hit pretty much anything and know that already on the bike you've got your tools, your tyre plugger, pump, CO2, all on the bike. I hate carrying backpacks. In fact, I never carry a backpack on a social ride, and everything is already on the bike, so I don't have to look for anything, it's just ready to go. So SRAM transmission on this bike. In fact, most bikes now I'm riding have got SRAM transmission, and SRAM's transmission just works brilliantly. You can shift under load. There is a little bit of lag that some people have mentioned, that when you press the actual gears between it actually shifting and when you've pressed, there is a small delay, but basically it's trying to get you in the perfect chain to cog setting, chain to rear cassette setting, so you shift with the cleanest, crispest shift you can possibly get. And the idea of that is it reduces strain and wear and tear, but there is a slight lag sometimes where it waits for it to get in the correct lane, so the cassette and the chain mesh up at the exact point. Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, you know I really do like this kit. I have bent 2 cages, bent 2 of them now. You can buy the cages separately and they're all interchangeable. So you can buy a GX cage to go on an XO, which I like. So you don't have to get the most expensive if you just want the spare part. It's all interchangeable. I'm running I think it's a 36 tooth front sprocket and the SRAM XO crank arms in 160. And then we've got the ONEUP dropper 210, amazing bang for buck, great performance from these droppers. And yeah, I mean, you can get droppers that are a little bit more expensive. The bike yoke ones are really good. I've got one of those, or had one of those before, but I just think these ONEUPs, they work brilliantly. They're pretty reasonably priced, and 210 drop, you can shim them down and you can get a 240 as well. They go right up to 240. I like how they put the charging port just up here. When you put it in the shed or the garage, it's easy to get to. And it's, again, another really small thing, but it just makes a difference to usability. It's also well out of the way of water down by the bottom bracket. So it's pretty smart to have that up there. The plastic on it could probably be improved. It's a little bit, don't know, feels a little bit plasticky. Not quite as premium as the rest of the bike, but very, very minor detail. Interesting point, I actually measured the chainstay. It was a little bit longer than they quoted. I measured it at 4.55. But I actually prefer longer chainstays. I think it helps balance, especially for taller riders on bigger bikes. So slightly longer than they say, but I'm really pleased with that. I would not go back to anything shorter than that. I think for me, on these XL bikes, this is an RH4, the biggest that they do. This chainstay size means I'm really balanced on the bike and I feel way more centered, and it helps climbing as well. I can load the front tire easier because I've got a little bit more leverage and my weight is further forward. And yeah, 4.55 chainstay is perfect for me. So I'm really happy with this bike. The build on it is super sick. Now, I am choosing this bike over everything at the moment. Maybe it's because it's just got that new factor and it's the most recent one that I've kind of had access to, but I love this bike. I'm pretty much riding it all the time. And stay tuned, because I'm going to do a proper ride review video, but I wanted to give you a first look of the bike and the build and just some early thoughts. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more, especially on this bike here, and I'll catch you soon.